Arachni laid waste to the galaxy 2,000 years ago. When all seemed lost and the end was near, one word delivered the killer blow. One word beat the monsters back to the abyss. And one word brought death to an enemy none dared fight. That word was Krogan! And today, the Krogan rise again. Today, we forge a new path and join the galaxy as allies in victory. Today, we win our future!
Okay, before we get stuck into this video, we want to say yes, the Krogan are clearly very, very heavily influenced from the Klingons from Star Trek. I think you have to be blind not to see that. Generally a mostly male, kind of war-frenzied, bloodlusted battle race that are gruff, quick to temper, and generally want to solve things by fighting. Look, hell, even Michael Dorn, who's a legendary actor of Worf from The Next Generation, even appeared as Gatagog Yuvek in Mass Effect 2 as an homage to the originals. For sure, this is the case. However, we want to look a bit more deeper into that because I think they are heavily influenced, but I think they have a lot more in them than just the Klingons. So in this video, we do take a deeper look into the Krogan, both established Bioware lore and also some of our own, some other speculation. So before we get stuck in, there's some spoilers ahead, obviously.
Yep. So to start off, the Krogans are a species of large reptile bipeds native to the planet Tuchanka, which is a world known for its harsh environments, scarce resources, and overabundance of vicious predators, which obviously has shaped the Krogan into the race we see in the Mass Effect universe today. The Krogan managed to not only survive on their unforgiving homeworld, but actually thrived in these extreme conditions. So unfortunately, Krogans as a society became very technologically advanced, and this also includes their weaponry. And so the end result is basically that they destroyed their homeworld in a nuclear war that reduced their race back to a primitive warring tribe, which obviously is what we end up seeing in Mass Effect. We sort of miss the end of their huge technologically advanced society, but we do see the sort of end of that in their broken down homeworld. With the help of the Solarians, the Krogans were uplifted into galactic society, and lent their numbers and military prowess to bring an end to the Rachni Wars. And they were super important in this war, as I think the Rachni were most likely too powerful for the Council races to sort of deal with at the time. But with the Krogans, the Rachni were absolutely destroyed, pretty much made extinct by the time of the Mass Effect games.
Yep, see our other video on Rachni Wars.
Yep. Ironically though, after the Rachni were eradicated, the rapidly expanding Krogan became a huge threat to the galaxy in turn, which started the Krogan rebellions, and forcing the Turians to unleash the genophage. This genetic infection dramatically reduced the fertility in Krogan females, causing a severe drop in births, secondary to prenatal and postnatal death, and ultimately eliminating the Krogan's numerical advantage. And the genophage is a huge deal during the games as well.
Yeah, see also our video on the genophage. So their biology, so we know that they're reptilian obviously, but basically due to the brutality of their surroundings, natural selection has played a massive role in the evolution of Krogan. Unlike most sentient species, Krogan eyes are wide set. On Earth, this is common amongst prey animals, but in this case, it gives the Krogan 240-degree vision, giving them greater visual acuity and awareness of approaching predators. Krogan eyes have narrow pupils. Their irises may be red, green, amber, or blue in color. Obviously, very much looking like reptilian eyes. Prior to the genophage, Krogan could reproduce and mature at an astonishing rate. Females are known to produce clutches of up to 1,000 fertilized eggs over the course of a year. In present conditions, according to Edie, the odds of a Krogan successfully giving birth to 2 females stand at 1 in 2,000, though Krogan biology is slowly adapting to the virus. Their large shoulder humps store fluids and nutrients, along with obviously giving them protection, but enabling them to survive extended periods without food or water. In particular, they require very little water intake, so 55-gallon tank system can sustain an entire colony of Krogan for over 10 years. A bigger shoulder hump is seen as a sign of high status, showing how successful an individual Krogan is at hunting. Their thick hides are virtually impervious to cuts, scrapes, or contusions, and they are highly resistant to environmental hazards, including toxins, radiation, and extreme heat and cold. Consequently, their diets can include food and drink, which would prove very dangerous to other species, a fact reflected in the Krogan liquor of choice, Rincoal, which is said to hit aliens like ground glass. Younger Krogan have yellow or green markings on their hides, and these markings darken to brown or tan over time, showing their age. These same younger Krogan tend to have looser plates on their head with soft spots in between. When they grow older, the plates grow together to form one whole. Krogan typically stand over 7 feet tall. They are heavy creatures and have been known to weigh at least 150 kilos and upwards of nearly 200 kilos for above average specimens. Some particularly large Krogan weigh in at about 800 pounds, which is about 362 kilos, estimated independently by themselves and by non-Krogan observers. Although biotic individuals are rare, there are those that do possess the talent, and they typically have strong abilities and are usually those Krogan battle masters.
Yep. So the most amazing physiological feature of the Krogan biology is the multiple instances of major organs. These secondary and even sometimes tertiary systems are capable of serving as backups in the event of damage to the primary biological structures. They have, as an example, 2 hearts, 4 lungs, 4 testicles even, and this reflects in their slang where they often speak about a quad, where a human would use the word balls or a pair. So Krogans also have secondary nervous system using a neuroconductive fluid, meaning they are almost impossible to paralyze, which again is reflected in their immunity or near immunity to a lot of toxins. It's very difficult to sort of damage them in that way. Krogan bleed a yellow or orange fluid when shot, which may be this fluid or actual blood. It's probably the neuroconductive fluid, but yeah, again, it could be just the color of their blood. Aside from redundant systems, the legendary Krogan blood rage adds to the race's reputation for being notoriously difficult to kill or incapacitate in normal combat scenarios. In this state, Krogan become totally unresponsive to any form of pain, and will fight regardless whether they're heavily injured or close to death, with the only side effect reducing their capacity for logic and self-control. So often, if they blood rage, it's kind of like the classic, like baiting a bull into charging. They become even stupider than usual, I guess, and you can often abuse this. But other than that, like you really do not want to fight a blood raging Krogan ever.
No, charging Krogan, yeah. Sheer physical hardiness means an individual Krogan can expect to live for centuries as well. So Krogan have been known to live well over 1,000 years, as evidenced by the warlord Okir, a veteran of the Krogan rebellions who died of definitely unnatural causes well over 1,000 years after the rebellions ended. Drak is another example of their long lifespans, a 1,400-year-old veteran of the Krogan rebellions who joined the Andromeda Initiative to voyage to the Helios cluster. So I guess technically speaking he's more like 2,000 years old because that took 600 years to get to, but that's another story.
Yeah, I mean, at least he was frozen during that time, supposedly, so, anyways. Despite their natural propensity for toughness, Krogan do have physical weaknesses. According to Zaid Masani, if one lodges a knife at a certain point near the frontal plate on a Krogan's head, the plate can actually be ripped off, and it is apparently one of the few things that Krogan do fear.
And that shit's nasty.
Yeah, that is nasty, but also nigh impossible for anybody that isn't like extremely talented with a knife, because it's not like a Krogan's gonna let you lodge a knife under the plate. So.
In the front as well, not even
good luck with that. Honestly, like good luck.
Yeah,
and that's also not including if they wear their their Krogan battle suits and their armor, which often actually covers some of the top parts of their head anyway. So again, like good luck.
Yes. So Krogan history. Ancient Krogan society was once rich with cultural, architectural and artistic accomplishments. However, the Krogan birth rate exploded despite the natural limits of their predatory homeworld once they achieved industrialization. Technology made life too easy for them, so when they looked for new challenges, they found those in each other. Wars were fought over dwindling resources as the Krogan expanded. 4,000 years ago, at the dawn of the Krogan nuclear age, battles to claim the small pockets of territory capable of sustaining life escalated into full-scale global war. Weapons of mass destruction were unleashed, transforming Tuchanka into a radioactive wasteland. The Krogan were reduced to primitive warring clans struggling to survive a nuclear winter of their own creation, a state that continued until they were discovered by the Solarians 2,000 years later.
Yep, so after the Krogans were liberated from their primitive state by the Solarians, who basically culturally uplifted their entire race by giving them advanced technology once again and relocating them to a planet that wasn't cursed with the lethal levels of radiation, toxins, or deadly predators, the Solarians even gave the Krogans the means to stabilize Tuchanka's atmosphere by means of the Shroud, which we'll talk about later, and possibly if we do a specific genophage video, this will be very important. But the Solarian intervention was not without an ulterior motive, as I was going to say. At the time, the Citadel was engaged in a prolonged galactic war with the Rachni, which was obviously, as we talked about, the race of intelligent spacefaring insects. The Solarians hoped that the Krogans would join the Citadel forces as soldiers to stand against an otherwise unstoppable foe. And the plan worked perfectly. Within 2 generations, the rapidly breeding Krogan had the numbers not only to drive back the advancing Rachni, but the ability to endure the harsh conditions of the Rachni homeworlds. And they were able to pursue them to these worlds, find the Rachni queens, and completely eradicate the species from the source. For a brief period, the Krogan were hailed as the saviors of the galaxy and were given not only the conquered Rachni worlds to keep, but other planets in Citadel space to colonize as well, in gratitude for their help. The Citadel Council even commissioned a statue for the Presidium, the Krogan monument, to honor the Krogan soldiers who died defending Citadel space. But without the harsh conditions of Tuchanka to keep their numbers in check, the Krogan population swelled to completely unprecedented numbers, and overcrowded and ran out of resources. The Krogan eventually spread out to forcibly claim even more worlds, basically becoming exactly what the Rachni were doing at the time. And there was always just one more world needed. And at this point, the final straw was when the Krogan began settling the Asari colony of Lucia. When the council ordered them to leave, Overlord Krudak, the Krogan ambassador, stormed out of the chambers, daring the Citadel races to take their worlds back, which obviously began a massive war between the Citadel races and the Krogan.
Bluffed well and truly called, I think. So the resultant Krogan rebellions continued for nearly 3 centuries. The Krogan sustained massive casualties, but their incredible birth rate kept their population steadily increasing. So victory seemed inevitable. It was just a matter of time, basically. In desperation, the council turned to the recently discovered Turian hierarchy for aid, and the Turians unleashed the genophage on the Krogan homeworlds. And we do another video on genophage specifically, but it was created by the Solarians and unleashed by the Turians. It was a bioweapon essentially that would cause near total infant mortality in the Krogan species, with only 1 birth in every 1,000 producing live offspring, so 0.1% birth rate of live offspring. So basically, that's pretty rough. And also mentally as well. You imagine the miscarriages and stillbirths, pretty rough. Although with Krogans obviously being more reptilian, it's more egg laying as opposed to holding a pregnancy. So at least that's something, but it's still must be pretty nasty. So not just stopping their population, but also inflicting a lot of like psychological trauma on them, I think. So so no longer able to replenish their numbers, the Krogan were eventually forced to accept terms of a surrender. For their role in quelling the Krogan rebellions, the Turians were awarded with a seat on the Citadel Council. So it's like the Citadel or the Council didn't really learn their mistakes. It's like find one race that they need to deal with. So bring a race up and then reward them, and then they now need to deal with that race. So now they find another race and bring them up. There seems to be a bit of an ongoing circle here. But in any case, the Turians then took the seat on the council, and it seemed to be no real problems after that from them anyway. But the Krogan, on the other hand, still suffer from the effects of the genophage. So over the last 1,000 years, Krogan numbers have steadily declined, leaving them as scattered and dying people. Some try bizarre treatments for the genophage, including testicle transplants. Because when you have 4 of them, apparently, you need more. But faced with the certainty of their extinction as a species, most Krogan have become individualistic and completely self-interested. They typically serve as mercenaries for hire to the highest bidder, though many still resent and despise the Citadel races that condemn them to their tragic fate. Wrex comments disdainfully that clubs, bars and brothels often try to hire Krogan bouncers, reducing his people to some kind of status symbol.
Yep. So continuing on that, in the modern times, despite the announcements about the failed Krogan-funded research into the genophage by 2183, most Krogan have not worked towards a cure, as they are more interested in combat than science. And at this point, I think a lot of them have sort of given up as well. Considering their long lifespans, they've kind of seen that it may be inevitable, and they've kind of just accepted their sort of position in the universe. Unless one is discovered and used, the extinction of the Krogan seems completely inevitable. And in 2185, Modern Solus explains that the Krogan are in fact evolving to undo the damage of the genophage, which is quite interesting. So even the Krogan themselves are unaware, as they've sort of abandoned science, but they're actually starting to evolve even to become immune to the genophage's effects, which just goes to show how hardy of a population they are. Like their biological systems are extremely powerful, like probably some of the best in the entire Mass Effect universe, really.
And a lot of spunk in those 4 balls in that quad.
Definitely. In that quad, yeah.
Massive quads, man. Massive quads.
Yeah, it takes a new meaning with Krogans. But anyways, to prevent overpopulation, Modern Special Tasks Group team created an applied and modified version of the genophage, which he claims will keep the population down, but still allows for a viable population, indicating that the Krogan race isn't actually as doomed as they believe. Modern states that both the original and new genophage were designed to stabilize the Krogan birth rate at pre-industrial levels, so 1 viable birth per 1,000, rather than 1,000 new Krogan from 1 female every year, which is what they were doing before. Given the prodigious Krogan birth rate, it would appear that the enormously violent nature of Krogan culture is actually responsible for their dwindling numbers, rather than the effects of the genophage. Ironically, this means that if the Krogan were not so convinced that they as a species were doomed, and consequently spent less time roaming and spoiling for fights, their number might actually increase more, as they are essentially being killed by their own fatalism of their race. So super interesting sort of psychology here behind the race, and also sort of the philosophy regarding the genophage.
And actually there's an applied version of that in real life, which we can get into when we get to our speculation section too. But moving on to the Reaper War, so keeping with modern times, so in 2186 the Reapers invaded Earth, which forced Commander Shepard to look for allies, which included the Krogan. Turian army needs the Krogan to help them defend their homeworld of Palaven, and the Krogan agreed to do this and help rescue Earth from the Reapers in exchange for a cure for the genophage. Because, just in case you're keeping one out at the back, can you check out the back? Because we need that cure. Which is on another video entirely, is one of my frustrating parts of Mass Effect 3, but there you go. Depending on Shepard's actions in 2185, with Malin's research data, Mordin or Paddock Wicks will manage to create a cure with the help of Eve, one of the last fertile female Krogans. And also, of course, depending on what happens with Vermeer in Game 1, it's Wrex or Wreav who is involved. So that's going to be quite important in terms of what can happen in the story. So if Shepard persuaded Mordin to keep the data, then Eve will live through the procedure, and if not, then she will die. Which means in my current playthrough she's going to die. Shepard and the team head to the Shroud to disperse the cure, despite the fact that STG sabotaged it to prevent this from happening. Shepard can allow the Stellarian scientists to override the sabotage and release the cure, which would result in his certain death, kill him to prevent the cure from being released, or convince him to take the fake cure. Or to fake the cure, sorry. If the genophage is cured, the Krogan pledge their support in the war against the Reapers. If the cure is sabotaged and Wrex leads the Krogan, he will discover the sabotage and withdraw Krogan support. However, if Wreav leads, then the Krogan are fooled into believing that the genophage is cured, so he's obviously a smart one, that one. The fate of the Krogan varies wildly by the war's end, obviously, so if the cure was sabotaged and organics and synthetics weren't merged, the Krogan are left as moribund as before, possibly headed towards extinction. However, if the cure was real, the Krogan are shown repopulating. They also aid in Tuchanka's reconstruction if Wrex is the leader. If Wreav is the leader, he attempts to incite the resurgent Krogan for his own purposes, either confronted by Eve if she's alive, or succeeding if not. If organics and synthetics were merged, the massive pyramids constructed by the Krogan forebears on Tuchanka are restored to their former glory, and with those, the race itself.
Just sort of delving into the culture here, the harsh Krogan homeworld conditioned the Krogan psychologically for toughness, just as it did the physical body. Krogan have always had a tendency to be selfish and unsympathetic and blunt, But sometimes when Krogan disagree, one of them will headbutt the other to show dominance. They respect strength and self-reliance above all else, and are neither surprised nor offended by treachery, as obviously Krogans are really just in it for their own sort of personal wealth at this point. The worst insult is to call somebody in the Krogan race not even worth killing, which is basically as bad as it gets as a Krogan if you're not even good enough to be worth taking care of. And the weak and the selfless do not live very long in Krogan culture. And their culture, looking out for number one is simply a matter of course. So yeah, as I said, everyone sort of looks after their own personal needs above everything else. Krogan have powerful territorial instincts which serve them well in combat, but can create problems. For example, when traveling on starships, Krogan find sharing quarters nearly impossible, and they need space specifically for themselves because they're extremely territorial. Most Krogan trust and serve no one but themselves, and this solitary attitude stems in part from a deep sense of fatalism and futility, a profound social effect of the genophage that caused Krogan numbers to dwindle to a relative handful. Not only are they angry at the entire galaxy seems to be out to get them, the Krogan are also generally very pessimistic about their race's chance of survival. And the surviving Krogan see no point to building for the future, as there will be no future, in their eyes anyways. And the Krogan live with a generally violent and short-sighted attitude, despite the fact that they live for a long time, because again, the effects of the genophage sort of lead them thinking that what's the point in sort of building for a future that they won't have.
Yeah. So female Krogan are rarely allowed to leave their home worlds because they're focused on breeding in an attempt to keep the Krogan numbers from declining too quickly. So the few remaining fertile females who can carry young to term are treated as prizes of war to be seized, bartered, or fought over. Recently, it has been noted that the females of the Krogan species live in clans separate from that of the males. Envoys, depending on how you want to say that, are sent out from the female clans to determine who amongst the males is worthy to visit the female clans. Due to the effects of the genophage and the lack of fertile females, this happens often, and many male Krogan sire children from one female. Krogan females also appear much more level-headed than males, the brains to their brawn, so to speak. Krogan children are raised within the females' camps. On occasion, the females send them over to the males for training. If a male wishes to claim his offspring, he can request the right of parentage. According to Eve, however, Krogan do not name their infants very well. The males get drunk on Sobak juice and have belching contests. Whatever happens to sound like a word becomes a name.
Yeah, so marks of the Krogan psyche, past and present, can be observed in their architecture and infrastructure. Ancient Krogan built towering basically pyramids, gigantic monuments and cities, complete with interior paintings of what could be called art. Millennia later, the ruins haven't yet been lost to the ravages of time and survived to remind the latter-day Krogans of their glory days, although places like the City of the Ancients were long since abandoned by then. Even Krogan building, every Krogan building is built huge and to last, and at the present day, even hospitals are built strong enough to withstand a bunch of Krogan undergoing blood rage, which is quite funny because you definitely wouldn't expect that to be happening in a hospital, but of course, since it's Krogan, anything can happen anywhere at any time.
And does. And frequently does.
And it does, yeah. So blocky ruins litter Tuchanka's surface, and a portion of them are actually still livable by Krogan standards. And if you've played the games and you've seen them, they're definitely not livable to pretty much any other race in the series, but Krogan can absolutely survive in even these harsh conditions. Krogan do not hold weddings, but they do participate in and appreciate courtship rituals. So again, there is obviously a relationship building between the male and female Krogans, but they don't marry or have any long-term, sort of long-standing connections like some of the other races might. And I think this is actually shared quite a bit with the Asari, as I think due to their long lifespan, they're kind of used to having multiple partners during their lifetime. And I think, breeding is more, it's less of a sort of romantic ritual and more of a like necessity, I suppose, for those races.
They're sluts.
Yeah,
right.
Basically.
Yeah. So coupling with that, like Krogan are also not shown to have particularly strong religious beliefs. The closest they really come to is to establish ritualistic burial grounds called the Hollows, where the skulls of their ancestors are displayed to remind them of where we all came from and where we all go. The Hollows are as sacred as any Krogan place can be, and violence therefore is forbidden. Ancient Krogan deities include Vul, a god who stood watch for the enemies of his pantheon. The planet Vul is named after this god, and its moons are named for Vul's myriad of eyes and ears. Krogan are also shown to believe in some form of afterlife. Several Krogan mention a place called the Void, which Krogan go to when they die. Additionally, the planet Krogan takes its name from a mythological paradise in which honorable Krogan warriors feast on the internal organs of their enemies. Nice.
Which is also obviously a bit of a reference to like the halls of Valhalla in Viking mythology. Going to sort of our roots as Brock and Sindri, I think this is pretty cool for the Krogan as well, to have that as part of their belief system as a paradise after they die.
Absolutely.
So Krogan tradition is steeped in ritual. So when a Krogan is born, he suffers the rite of life, and when he comes of age, he undergoes the rite of passage. If he wishes to be considered for breeding, he must take the rite of honor, and when facing a new enemy, the rite of firsts is also invoked. If two Krogan are quarreling with each other, the rite of union may serve as a way to heal the bond between them, and by giving the mutual pair an enemy to fight. If one wishes to take over clan leadership, the rite of authority determines whether the current leader keeps his post or loses it to the challenger. Positions of power also bear the responsibility of more rights, like being the leader, being a clan leader or a shaman. The rite of passage and all other rites and traditions are preserved by the clan's shaman. So I think the rite of passage is actually the one you do with Grunt, I believe.
Yeah, it's a bit like a bar mitzvah, I guess, but in Krogan style.
Yeah, so you end up fighting a giant sandworm among many other things.
Yeah, it's Threshermore in this universe. Yeah.
A shaman can be of either gender, and they must undergo lengthy and torturous rites to assume the position, and is required to give up their name. Because of this level of commitment, the shaman is actually one of the most respected members of the clan, definitely like a second place to the actual clan leader itself.
Sure. So in actually have more authority to speak than
especially if the leader
like on the rite of passage, for example.
Yeah, especially on rights, but also if the leader is particularly new or disliked, I think a lot of people come to the shaman instead, because obviously the shaman can't just be given the position. Like there's a lot that goes into it, so it's definitely a high position of power in the Krogan society. The Krogan have at least two ways of formally dealing with their dead. Suicides are left for scavengers to feed on, so they see that as sort of cowardice. But another is via funeral pyre, where the shaman eulogizes the dead and symbolically consigns it to the void. Known instances of the pyre include Krogan who have died a particularly valorous death, e.g., so just as an example, by saving the future of their race. Again, this is actually quite Norse-inspired. I think it's quite common in Norse mythology and the sort of Norse history for the great heroes of their culture to be given a proper like pyre rather than a burial or anything like that.
So it's the same like thing of this idea of you need an honorable death and a warrior's death as opposed to taking an easy route. And obviously Krogan's insult of not being worth the killing also goes into how they want to die. So they're going to want to die, as I said, a warrior's death as opposed to like a weak death. They don't want to die of old age, basically.
Yeah.
We don't know a huge amount about Krogan language except for a few kind of non-translatable terms. Some terms are known specifically to certain Krogan clans, like Aralak, which was taken from the clan Wreav. Known Krogan words are listed below. So we're going to list some of them now. Obviously, so we have Aralak, which means Eye of Wrath.
So we also have Korbal, which roughly translates to victory or death.
Yep. And then we have Krant, which would be the warrior's most trusted allies or kind of group.
We have Rushan, which means child of my blood.
Yep. And then we have Ruzad, which means the judge.
And finally we have Trobror, which means cinder or ash heap. So, not much to go off of here. We really don't have very many words in their language or culture to sort of go off of, unlike some of the other races.
Yeah. So Krogan names, so the names of individual Krogans are based off two parts. They have the clan name, which is then followed by a given name. So obviously an example being like Erdnot Wrex. So the clan name is Erdnot and the name is Wrex. At birth, Krogan are identified by their given name only, and the clan name would then only be bestowed on a Krogan after completion of the rite of passage of the clan they wish to join. While Krogan actions do speak louder than words, linguistic quirks are not unknown to them. So some known Krogan idioms include like a thresher more pet, indicating something is unpredictable.
So Krogan are divided into numerous clans, as we sort of hinted at before, and membership in a clan allows a Krogan to own property, join the army, and apply to serve under a battlemaster. Young Krogan undergo a rite of passage, as we said, that is overseen by a shaman respective to the clan that the Krogan wishes to join. So again, this is the rite that we eventually sort of help Grunt do during Mass Effect, eventually sort of leading him to join the Clan Erdnot as well. In Clan Erdnot specifically, this rite consists of battling various wild fauna on Tuchanka, ending with an encounter with the Thresher Maw. Merely surviving for 5 minutes is considered proof of your worthiness, but actually killing the Thresher Maw increases the initiate's prestige and standing, and few outsiders have ever seen a rite of passage take place, even though there are no rules in Krogan tradition that state a non-Krogan can't help with undertaking the rite as the participant's Krant, which is one of the words we said before, which is obviously the warrior's most trusted allies.
That's right. So obviously in Mass Effect 2 in Grunt loyalty mission, you undertake the rite of passage, and so you then become his Krant as Shepard, and you can actually take on this Thresher Maw and either survive or defeat it. If you defeat the Thresher Maw, kill the Thresher Maw, it's basically revealed that the generations have passed since the last person that did that, and that was actually Wrex himself, who is quite a few hundred years old at this point. So it's been a long time.
Yeah, and again, I think it's really cool that I think a lot of people playing through Mass Effect 2 didn't even know it was killable in time, but you absolutely can, and it's pretty cool to get a few extra dialogue lines and have Grunt sort of be a little bit more respected even. Even Shepard himself, as since he took part in the battle, also gets quite a lot of respect too.
Yeah, and word of advice is that there's power cells around, so keep your collector particle beam on hand for that one, because that makes it a hell of a lot easier.
Save it for the end, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So there's some known Krogan clans that we'll go into. Again, mostly in alphabetical order. We've got Clan Bragus, and so an example is Bragus Thule, plays as a quarterback in North American Union Rules football. Have no idea whether that's an actual person that they're given the name of this clan. Don't know where this clan comes from, but it is a known clan in the Mass Effect world. We also have Clan Dumbra, one of several clans with individuals that join the Andromeda Initiative.
So we also have Clan Drow. Drow Sorze is a Ruzador judge in the Republic of Gerst on Tuchanka. We also have Clan Forsan. This clan's leader declared being hit by Pyjak, sorry.
They're like the space monkeys, yeah.
Yeah. Declared that being hit by Pyjak dung is grounds for executing the traitor responsible for introducing the Pyjak to Tuchanka.
That's right. So we have Clan Ganar. Ganar Rang, an exiled Krogan battlemaster, founded the Blood Pact mercenary group. And then Clan Gatagog, led by Gatagog Uvenk, obviously voiced by Michael Dorn or Worf, which is a clan on Tuchanka. And then you also have the chance to kill him after rite of passage for Grunt too.
So we have Clan Graken Dal, a warlord involved in the bombardment of Digeris during the Krogan rebellions. A warlord from back then. Clan Gulnaz, one of several clans with individuals that joined the Andromeda Initiative as well. Yeah.
And we have Clan Halot, clan leader Halot Rund controlled Garvug prior to the corporatist invasion in 2185. So Garvug is another planet. Clan Jer, one of several clans with individuals that joined the Andromeda Initiative as well.
Clan Jorgol, a clan known to have one of the longest Krogan breeding lines and oldest bloodlines. So it's one of the oldest clans in known lore. Clan Gerodon, an enemy of Clan Erdnot on Tuchanka. This is sort of during the game time as well.
Yep. Clan Karis, one of several minor clans with individuals that join the Andromeda Initiative. And Clan Kel Barum is a Krogan competing at Pinnacle Station in one of the crappiest DLC ends of all time. But there you go.
Yep, so the next two, Clan Kor and Clan Kormer, two separate clans, are both some of the clans that joined the Andromeda Initiative. Clan Korten is a clan known for making Klixen roasted Baron jerky with their own signature Pijak sauce. That sounds fantastic.
I mean, Klixen are like these giant, like spider, scorpion type things, but I mean, like, fine. Roast that with some Baron and some Pijak sauce. That sounds great. A very well known one now here, especially if you played Mass Effect 2 or Andromeda, is Clan Nakmor. Obviously, you have a chat with the Nakmor ambassador on Tuchanka in Mass Effect 2, but you also come across two members of this clan in Andromeda. So you have the superintendent of the Nexus, which is Nakmor Kesh, and you also have a crewmate in Nakmor Drak. So both are probably two of the stronger characters from Andromeda. Quite a well-known clan, that one.
Yeah, so the next one we have is Clan Quash. Quash Hergot is actually a Blood Pact commander, so another sort of exiled Krogan, I think, that's ended up in sort of a mercenary company. Clan Reich, source of the word Aralak, meaning the Eye of Wrath, which became the common name used by the galaxy to refer to Tuchanka's star.
Clan Ravenor, the clan runs a mining operation on Tuchanka. Warlord Ravenor Tusk is a clan member. And then Clan Talith, a clan that attempted to rebuild a dreadnought on Tuchanka with the help of Turian Duark Ellis Valterus.
So the next one, Clan Thax, which is the clan of Krogan businessmen, and the specific one that we see is Thax Borak. I'm actually not 100% sure when he shows up, but he is a character, I believe. He's in the Stolen Goods mission on Ilium, I believe.
Okay, yeah.
So the next few are a little bit bigger. I'll quickly just say the last one is Clan Wick, one of the several clans with individuals that joined the Andromeda Initiative as well. So we'll talk about. Do you want to talk about Clan Erdnot and Clan Werelok?
Werelok, yeah, we'll finish with Erdnot because they're obviously probably the most well-known to players. Clan Werelok also predominantly feature in Mordin's, what do you call it, loyalty mission on Tuchanka in Mass Effect 2. They're the ones that basically are working with Malon in the hospital to kind of like try and get a genophage cure. So basically, as a part and parcel of that mission, you actually end up wiping out Clan Werelok, which actually helps increase the strength of Clan Erdnot. And Clan Erdnot obviously being the clan of Wrex. So being kind of the ruling, effectively like the ruling family by the time of Mass Effect 2 and 3 of Tuchanka. And having Wreav as well, so being, and also the clan that obviously Grunt gets accepted into as well.
Yeah, so definitely, not only is it the clan of obviously Wrex, the first person you meet, but it's also, the sort of ruling clan by the time you get to Mass Effect 3, if Wrex is still alive.
And it should be mentioned just at this point, by the way, that it's quite, I mean, I don't know what Erdnot means, if it means anything at all, but Wrex, obviously, if you take out the W, Wrex is the Latin for king.
Yeah, so definitely, a pretty, prolific clan at this point. So I guess,
if you didn't know in the first game, having Wrex on your team could lead to him becoming the king, then you need to go and study Latin. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. It was known from the beginning.
Like obviously going to be father, like Darth Father, basically.
Yeah.
All right. So, what kind of government do the Krogans have?
So after the defeat in the rebellions, the very concept of Krogan leadership was completely discredited. When a warlord could once command enough power to bring entire solar systems to heel and swear allegiance to him, it is speculated that rather than that, it's rare for a single leader to even have more than 1,000 warriors on their team, or like sort of following them. It is speculated that their instinctive aggression and territorial nature prevent the Krogan from forming any kind of centralized government or parliament that is not based on fear or obedience, which obviously, as we sort of know, these types of governments do not ever last long. And here we have the Krogan homeworld of Tuchanka is divided into multiple nation states, including the Republic of Gerst, which was embroiled in the rebellion in 2185. So again, like, with all these different clans and individuals sort of vying for power, it's very difficult for the Krogans to have any form of sort of centralized government at all.
Yeah. So traditional, in terms of military now as well, traditional Krogan tactics were built on attritional mass unit warfare. So obviously numbers, basically, like we'll outnumber you, eventually we'll wear you down because you'll run out of people and we won't. So equipped with cheap, rugged gear, troop formations were powerful but inflexible. Command and control was very centralized. Soldiers in the field who saw a target contacted their commanders behind the lines to arrange fire support. However, since the Genophage, the Krogan can no longer afford the casualties of the old horde attacks, so battle masters are a match for any 10 soldiers of another species, apart from Shepherd. To a battle master, killing is a science. They focus on developing clean, brute force economy of motion that exploits their brutal strength to incapacitate enemies with a single swift blow of overwhelming power. So I'm just going to, on a side note, in Mass Effect Revelation, the first kind of novel that kind of was a prequel, to Mass Effect 1, you're introduced to a mercenary called Scar, who's a battle master, and the biggest thing that he does in battle is when Carly Sanders and a few other Alliance Marines are sort of holed up behind their rover, taking like cover fire in a defensive position, he kind of just rocks up and uses his biotics to flip over this massive rover, this like 4 or 5 ton rover, to flip it out into the air and away to absolutely expose their cover. And then without the need for any other action, he basically just said surrender, and they did because they knew that they were screwed. It was pretty cool. So the change of focus from mass unit warfare to maximal efficiency has increased employment demand in the fields of security and muscle for hire. So due to the unsavory reputation of the Krogan, most of these jobs are on the far side of the law.
Yeah, so it's sort of become their most common, focus now, is that rather than sort of having these military exploits, they are often just kind of hired as these sort of thugs and that sort of thing. But here we have battle masters are not spit and polish, but they do believe in being well armed and equipped, and preferably with a gun for each limb. They are callous and brutal, but methodical and disciplined. They use any means at their disposal to achieve their goals, no matter how reprehensible. Hostage taking and genocide are completely acceptable means to ensure a quiet occupation with few Krogan casualties. So obviously showing their adaptation to the fact that their numbers are no longer their biggest advantage. They have to sort of, minimize the amount of casualties, kind of like everyone else now. The Krogan serving with Saren's forces appear to be returning to the old style of mass attritional combat. They also work in close cooperation with supporting Geth units who fill in the roles occupied by combat drones in their other armies. So I guess this is due to Saren or the Reaper's influence. These Krogan are sort of a lot more sort of based on just throwing numbers at you until you lose, because they have those types of numbers with the Geth at their side. Biotics
it's a bit like Jack Brandon sending wave after wave of his own men at the kill bots.
Yeah, until they surrender.
Until they had a pre-set kill limit.
Yeah.
Anyway, different world.
Biotics are extremely rare among the Krogan, especially since the practice of surgically creating Krogan biotics has been completely discontinued due to the extremely high mortality rate, which they can't afford anymore. Those that do exist are viewed with suspicion and fear. The Krogan see this aura of fear as a useful quality for an officer and often promote them. Combat drones and other high-tech equipment are likewise in pretty short supply, so the majority of Krogans that you will fight are just absolute brutes with
just powerhouses.
Just powerhouse, absolute beasts. Krogan military doctrine has a different take on what scouting and reconnaissance means. While other races, scouts prefer stealth and discretion in carrying out their task, Krogan scouts instead opt to deal psychological warfare when they find the enemy by way of occasional harassment or intentionally exaggerating their numbers. The reason is that it is a lot easier to count enemy numbers when some of them get blown up.
Except for when they're in pieces. So weapons developed by the Krogan include the Graal spike thrower shotgun, obviously it's going to be a shotgun, and the Striker assault rifle. The Graal was designed specifically for hunting Thresher Moors, so it has predictably grisly effects when used on humanoid targets. I love the way this is written. The Striker is a fully automatic weapon that fires high impact explosive slugs with high recoil, making it a difficult weapon for non-Krogan to keep on target despite it being designed with them in mind. Krogan also used a large infantry fighting vehicle named the Tomka. The Krogan possessed a powerful fleet that included many dreadnoughts. But since the end of the Krogan rebellions, however, they've been prohibited from constructing warships. This ban is enforced by the Council DMZ, or Demilitarization Enforcement Mission, arm of the Citadel Council, which maintains garrisoned outposts throughout the whole Krogan DMZ. Every few years, another Krogan warlord violates the ban, but usually an alliance of rivals ends his dreams of hegemony before Citadel forces even have to fire a shot. So relics of the Krogan rebellion, such as the defunct long-range ground-to-space anti-ship batteries that dot Tuchanka's surface, serve as monuments to the Krogans' past glory and military might, but have little practical value. Obviously, that one does come up in Mass Effect 3 as well.
Yep. So I guess we can go over a few of the notable Krogan on the list here. I won't mention too many, but we have Brood. We have Char or Kar. I think it's Char.
Char, who is the Krogan who is professing his love via poetry to the Asari on Ilium, and then if Shepard convinces the Asari to take him back, you end up seeing them on Tuchanka, and he's trying to tell her how beautiful it is, and she's like, okay, not very. So that was kind of a cool little side thing.
Yep, and Brood is a member of the Blood Pack, just for reference. I think he's in one of the novels or an animated series or something. We have Dr. Droyas here, who is a Krogan researcher working at Saren Arterius' base in Vermeer.
That's right, he doesn't last long if you're quite a Shepard by that point.
There's also Eve, who is actually named by Mordin Solus, or Paddock Wicks, depending. And is also known as Adnot Bakara, I believe is her real name. And she's a female Krogan shaman, and she's pretty important in Mass Effect 3, particularly.
Pretty huge, yeah. So, Fortak, do you have any info on Fortak?
I'll quickly have a look at Fortak. So he's actually the Lord High Researcher of Clan Erdnot, and he owns Fortak's database on Tuchanka, so he...
that's right. So that's right. He makes weapons.
Yep.
That's right. I remember because I bought out his whole shop the other day.
He has a rant at Commander Shepard is the main thing I remember. Like
that was great. Yeah, that's right. The aforementioned Gatagog Uvenk, who is voiced by Michael Dorn, aka Worf. He opposes Grunt being allowed to be on Tuchanka at all, let alone do the Passage of Rights, until he destroyed the Thresher Maw, in which case he then invites Grunt to join his clan instead. And Grunt basically says, get lost, I'm going to kill you, which is great. Obviously Grunt himself, who is the genetically perfect tank-bred Krogan by the warlord Okir, who's also on this list obviously as well. Grunt basically is a potential squad mate for Mass Effect 2. I don't know anyone that's not activated the Krogan. Grunt. I don't know anyone that's not done it, but Grunt's pretty cool. I think if you're not going to have Wrex as a tech squad member, Grunt's the next best thing, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Next we have Joggle Strux, who I believe is part of the Andromeda Initiative, and then Joggle Thurax, who I believe is a Blood Pack mercenary, I think.
Oh, okay, maybe.
So they have a bit of a connection there with the clan, but not actually part of the same situation. Nakmor Drak, who is the Krogan squad mate in Andromeda. Kesh, who is, I think, is that his
Nakmor Kesh, his granddaughter, who's the superintendent of the Nexus, which is like the Citadel equivalent in Andromeda. Female, obviously female Krogan. We'll do another video on these two because I have some issues with some of the continuity of these characters. But then Nakmor Morda, who I think is the ambassador of the Nakmor clan on Tuchanka in Mass Effect 2. Yes, on New Tuchanka.
It says I think he's in Andromeda. It says it's on. So yeah, the colony of Aladdin.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. So that's
also a
as
female.
Well. There is
as well.
another. Oh really? Okay, of course it is. So there is another Nakmor Krogan that you come across, obviously unnamed. It's just Nakmor Ambassador, who is an ambassador to the Erdnot clan, and originally doesn't want to talk to you, and kind of does talk to you after a little bit of kind of give and take with Shep. Then we have Nax, who is I think another one from Andromeda. No,
I think
wrong.
He's
Nax. So Nax is a Nax is encountered by Jacob Taylor in Mass Effect Galaxy, which is like a comic, I guess in between I think Mass Effect 1 and 2. So we don't really come across him in games or anything like that. I've mentioned Okir, mentioned Patriarch in other videos. We mentioned him again. Patriarch was the ruler of Omega, who was deposed by Arya Tlok. The Shaman is the Shaman of the Urdnot clan that basically sets Grunt on the rite of passage. Scar is previously mentioned, as I said, is the battle master mercenary employed by Idan Hadar in Mass Effect Revelation to kind of basically kill Harley Sanders. It's really cool. If you haven't read that book, definitely do it. Urdnot Wreav is basically the brother of Wrex. Doesn't make any appearances if Wrex stays alive, but if Wrex dies, Wreav basically takes place of Wrex, but is not just an exact replica. Actually, different things happen if that is the case.
Yeah, so Urdnot Dag is basically the replacement for Grunt if Grunt actually didn't get accepted into Clan Urdnot, or if he was killed or never recruited. So he's basically the replacement for Grunt, and obviously the connection between him and Shepard is substantially weaker in Mass Effect 3 if this is who is replacing Grunt, whereas if it is still Grunt, there's a much greater connection there.
So I also believe, and I've never actually heard of him before because I've never, as I said, I don't know anyone that's not had Grunt. But I believe he's only really available on that mission where you investigate the Reaper Rachni stuff, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't make it out as Grunt does if obviously Grunt is your Grunt, basically. So then there's a couple more to mention. We'll go with Chief Rarelock Gold, who is the kind of the head of the Warlock clan, as mentioned on the Mordin Solus loyalty mission. You kill him, destroy his clan, he goes. There is one that's known as X1, who basically appears, is a modified Krogan sort of test subject that basically I think appears in, what does he appear in? It's I think it's the game, the iOS game, if I remember rightly. I never finished that one, but I believe it's Mass Effect Infiltrator, which is like like the handheld game, iOS and maybe Android as well. Did you ever play that one?
I haven't played it at all, so I've never seen this character before personally.
It was pretty cool. I just never finished it, and now it's not like, it doesn't work on the later OSs, so it's a bit frustrating. And then obviously probably the big one, and probably the most favorite Krogan that anyone has, which is obviously Urdnot Wrex, squad mate for Mass Effect 1, favorite squad mate I think of everyone in Mass Effect 1. I don't know many people that don't think he's the best. There obviously are a few, but he's fantastic. And he ends up being basically almost like the de facto king of the Krogan by the end of Mass Effect 3, doesn't he? In most cases. Yeah,
in most cases. I think it's actually, he's one of the few characters that I think it's very, very possible for you to end up with him dead in Mass Effect 1. Spoiler alert, obviously. It's definitely, I think, on one of my first playthroughs, he did end up dead. Every subsequent playthrough, I've made sure that he doesn't, but 100%, I think he's easily the easiest one to mistakenly end up having to kill.
And it should be clarified, like dead by Shepard's hand as well.
Yeah, you have not much choice if you don't manage to succeed in getting enough Paragon or Renegade points in Mass Effect 1, which I think is pretty cool, because I think he's a really, really awesome character, and the fact that he's not that important in a lot of people's playthroughs, because in a lot of people's playthroughs he will be dead, I think is really cool, but also pretty sad, because he definitely should be everyone should know who he is.
I wish he was a squad mate for longer in Mass Effect 3, let's put it that way. We're just going to do a bit of trivia on Krogans as a species. Then we'll talk a bit about Tuchanka being the home world, because it's quite important, I think. And then we'll finish off with our own kind of speculation, theories, thoughts, and talk. So we're kind of coming to the end of this video, guys. But essentially, before Mass Effect 3, only one female Krogan had ever been encountered. She was basically lying dead during Mordin Solus's loyalty mission on that hospital, the Clan Warlock hospital on the way. So she was noticeably a lot smaller than a male Krogan.
So another sort of interesting bit of trivia is the Mass Effect Associate Art Director Matt Rhodes has stated that the facial appearance of the Krogan was actually inspired by bats, which is actually quite interesting, because you wouldn't think that at first, but I think the more you look at them, the more you can sort of see the resemblance there. But obviously Krogan have been given the plates and the more reptilian
Yes.
eyes and stuff like that. But I think that's a pretty cool comparison there.
Yep, and according to the art of the Mass Effect universe, Bioware actually based ancient Krogan architecture on the work of Frank Lloyd Wright, albeit with a bit more of a brutal veneer as befitting the characters.
Yep.
And then I think so the playable race in Mass Effect 3's cooperative multiplayer mode, which I've never played either. And then the final one I've got for this one, which I thought was kind of cool. What do you think? But stuffed Krogan heads can be found in a few places in Bioware games, Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age Inquisition.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Like a really cool little Easter egg referencing the Krogan from Mass Effect in other Bioware games.
Yeah, some of those cross series things are quite cool. Like the dragon armor in Mass Effect 2.
Yeah. So I guess let's talk on to Chunka a little bit then. Obviously, as we've said, it's the homeworld of the Krogans, and it's the fourth planet from the Aralux star within the Krogan DMZ. It is scarred, obviously, by the bombardment craters, radioactive rubble, choking ash, salt flats, and alkaline seas. And Tuchanka can barely support life. Obviously, this is due to the wars that they had previously. Thousands of years ago, life grew in fierce abundance under the F-class star Araluk. And the Reich clan word for this star is the Eye of Wrath. That's why it's called Araluk. Tree analogues grew in thick jungles, their roots growing out of the shallow, silty seas. Life fed upon life in an evolutionary crucible. This world died in the nuclear firestorms after the Krogan split the atom. A little ice age of nuclear winter killed off much of the remaining planet life, and that's why the only things we really see are the harsh creatures like Krogan and the other predators on the world.
Yeah. So in recent centuries, many Krogan have actually returned to their homeworld. The reduced albedo has caused global temperatures to rise. In order to maintain livable temperatures, a vast shroud was assembled at the L1 Lagrange point, and it was done by the Solarians, I think. It is maintained by the Council Demilitarization Enforcement Mission, which is based on orbiting battle stations. There is a CDEM, which is the same Council Demilitarization Enforcement Mission advisory that visitors to Tuchanka land at their own risk. The CDEM will not attempt to extract citizens threatened by clan warfare. Another travel advisory: the ecology of Tuchanka is deadly. Nearly every native species engages in some predatory behavior. Even the remaining vegetation is carnivorous. Travel beyond guarded areas is strongly discouraged.
Yep, so again, this is just to show the big sort of dichotomy between Tuchanka and the rest of Citadel space. This really isn't a place that the rest of the sort of Citadel species would like to be. So the Krogan homeworld boasts extreme temperatures, virulent diseases, and vicious predatory fauna. Around 1900 BCE, Krogan discovered atomic power and promptly instigated many interplanetary wars, sending Tuchanka into its own nuclear winter. With most of their industrial base destroyed, the Krogan entered a new dark age and warring tribal bands dominated. Populations remained low for the next 2,000 years. Eventually, though, the first contact with Solarians was made, and resurgence became possible again. Krogan brought to the less hostile planets bred exponentially and returned to reconquer their home. And they built vast underground shelters to shield themselves from surface radiation, which proved prescient during the Krogan rebellions, when many of them isolated themselves in vain to avoid the genophage. Convinced they could outbreed the genophage, they transmitted it into more than 90% of the sealed bunkers. Obviously, very stupid thing to do. Breeding when some of you are infected with the genophage is the best way to ensure that everyone gets infected with the genophage. So yeah, they transmitted it to more than 90% of all the sealed bunkers. Today, Tuchanka's population is sharply limited, and while individual Krogans are very long-lived, the genophage ensures that there are very few replacements to the Krogans.
Yeah. So some trivia on Tuchanka. Tuchanka is the first homeworld of any species that Shepard can visit in games, which I had never actually realized before, but it's really very cool. Much true. Including Earth, by the way, before you get to Earth, although you can get to Luna, the moon, I guess, in Mass Effect 1, so yeah, it depends on whether you count that as a homeworld or not, which is debatable in some ways. The planet, among with other locations, is featured on the Mass Effect 2 cinematic trailer, where Grunt is seen killing a Thresher Maw.
Yep, the cover for Mass Effect 2 actually displays Tuchanka's surface in the background, which is really cool. And also, obviously, a lot of people haven't played this, myself and I believe yourself included, but the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer map, Firebase Giant, is actually located on Tuchanka as well.
Yep. So let's talk a bit about Thresher Moors as well, just to kind of cap this off, because these are seen as like very high, I guess worshipped species in Krogan culture, and they seem to have been drawn on a few sources as kind of references back to other works. So you first of all have the obvious I guess reference to the sandworms in Dune, which is also, by the way, got a new series coming soon. So let's look out for that too. This is kind of substantiated by the use of Moor hammers in Mass Effect 3 to summon Kalros, which is a giant Thresher Moor, like the king or the queen, sorry, of the Thresher Moors, I believe. Similar devices called thumpers were used to attract the sandworms in the Dune novels. Additionally, Javik's remark about Thresher Moors being ridden draws parallel to Dune's desert-dwelling freemen routinely riding sandworms when traveling long distances.
It's also quite likely that the Thresher Moor was inspired by the Sarlacc, which is a creature present in Star Wars, as not only do the two bear many similar sort of similarities visually, but particularly in terms of like the interplanetary migration that they have there as well. It's definitely like visually you can see how they sort of are similar, but I think the Sarlacc is definitely the more famous example. So
Dune's pretty well known.
Fair enough.
It's kind of one of the original kind of cyberpunk works, if you like. And I would say, just to finish off, both of them are probably just related, or all three are related back to a real life species known as the bobbit worm. So check that out. All right, so let's talk about some speculation on the Krogan in general and some kind of theories and thoughts. As mentioned in another video, I think Krogan are a bit of Bioware's in-game representation of toxic masculinity on that kind of a level, and what can obviously go wrong when you let testosterone rule, and having 4 bollocks rather than 2. They obviously have a lot of testosterone, I would imagine. So they've even gone to the level of obviously calling a particular Krogan that was deposed from power by a strong female called the Patriarch. So it's not very subtle, but it's there.
Even to further this theory, you have the genophage, which largely sterilizes the men. You also have the shroud being a large phallic-shaped symbol that is worshipped by the Krogan. And obviously, as you said, they have 4 testicles, which is a very large emphasis on sort of testosterone and I guess manliness. And prior to spacefaring, to their spacefaring ways, they nuked themselves back into the Dark Ages. And it's all about infighting between the clans and the male leaders of these clans. And actually, Krogans are similar to feminism's portrayal of our human men.
At least in this day and age, I believe so. But I also think that, so it can go a little bit deeper than this. And before we get onto the next little theory that we have, I just wanted to talk about, when we were going through that, even in this video, there's this concept of potential nuclear disaster and interbreeding kind of tribes, rather than having one united planet. It seems very what Earth is like at the moment, in a way. So as we know, with things, anything in sci-fi is always a way to give a bit of a critique of modern society as well, or current society. And so I think this is definitely some aspect of a critique of current society, which is the threat of nuclear war and infighting is potentially stopping us, or it's potentially castrating us effectively, right? I think that's kind of something that could be maybe a subtle link, but that could be an inference taken from what the Krogan represent in game.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot to be inferred from that, and I think Bioware, and Bioware's writing team, nothing is kind of accidental. I think a lot of things are planned in advance. So I'm sure, even if it's not necessarily their primary objective with the Krogans, I think there's definitely some sort of, conclusions to be drawn from what they could mean in this universe. But I guess the next thing we have written is the designs of the Krogan actually remind us a little bit of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, with instead of a shell they have the sort of hump on their back, sort of like a camel, or how a turtle have the shell. It's sort of similar in that way, but it's pretty on point. They also live underground a lot as well, so
that's right. Well, look, I always saw them as actually like turtle style like species, like humanoid turtles. Genuinely, in my first playthrough, because of how similar that appearance was, like I genuinely thought that. And obviously they're reptilian, but like I genuinely was like, these have been influenced by the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I mean, particularly when they wear their battle suits and whatnot. There's quite a large, I guess, sort of circle around the head area, so it kind of looks like the head's extending from a shell a lot of the time, a lot like turtles. There's also some real life Komodo dragons that sort of look similar to their appearance as well. So I guess there's a lot of inspiration there.
Do you reckon Krogan eat pizza?
100%.
They must, but only if it's what was it? Klickson.
Yeah, pepperoni pizza.
Klickson cooked Baron jerky in a pie jack sauce.
Yeah.
Also, I guess this one. Look, okay. So there's a lot of theories online, or people that are trying to like say that Mass Effect is not very cyberpunk, and obviously being such a wide-scale cyberpunk, sci-fi world, there's going to be some things that look physically more cyberpunky than others. But Tuchanka really is a cyberpunk world in a lot of ways. Again, you imagine your Akira story in this post-disaster rebuilding stage where everything's rubble. That is cyberpunk at its core. There's a lot of cyberpunk works that are like this. So I actually think that this is super cyberpunk. Another thing that builds into the cyberpunk links. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think in so many cyberpunk works, the race of humanity ends up sort of bringing about nuclear winter upon themselves by all these nuclear wars across the planet, eventually leading to not necessarily a complete dark age, but similar to the Krogans here, it sort of leads them to have the power consolidated in particular factions rather than in like one singular government. And that's exactly what's happening on Tuchanka. That's exactly what happens. So I think, yeah, absolutely, there's some cyberpunk inspirations here, as there is in a lot of Mass Effect. So
I mean, also you can add on to that the fact that there's a bioweaponry being taken to control them is quite a cyberpunk theme as well. And then just to finalize this as something is that this Thresher Maw, which is possibly inspired by those giant sandworms in June, which despite some online theorists, June is a cyberpunk novel. It's just the reason why people think it's not is because it happened, it came out about 10 years before the massive wave of cyberpunk took off and the term was coined, but it genuinely was cyberpunk before cyberpunk was called that. And it's definitely, I believe the Thresher Maws are a definite nod to June, personally. And I think that that's another nod to the fact that Mass Effect has a lot of cyberpunk elements within it. Final, I guess, question from my side, unless there's anything you want to bring up, is Krogan versus Klingons. Which one do you prefer, and why?
Just to answer that before we finish off, I definitely, I absolutely love the Krogan. They're one of probably my top 3 races in Mass Effect. Almost every character in the Krogan has like pretty good motivation and good reason to be doing what they're doing, and I really love the sort of philosophy that comes into it with the genophage as well. So although I could probably, if we do a genophage video, which I think we will at some point, talk about how I guess not well done it is in Mass Effect 3. I still think that the general story that they were setting up is absolutely fantastic, and this is one of the most well fleshed out races in the entire sort of Mass Effect lore and in sci-fi in general. So yeah, absolutely Krogans, 100%.
I think, and my take is definitely Krogans, and I do like the Klingons too, by the way. But the Krogans, I think they took a little, obviously quite a little inspiration from them, I would say, and really ran with it and created something that now absolutely exists in its own right as a completely separate thing. And to me, the backstory and everything of the Krogans, as much as the Klingons are great, I think absolutely surpasses everything. And yeah, it's no question that the Krogans are in the top 3 best Mass Effect species. Just the question is, where do they fall in that top 3? But there's probably going to be another video at some point from my channel that will go into that. So you guys will have to wait and we'll have to decide.
Yeah, and so with that, I think that's everything we have on the Krogans today. Definitely a bit of a longer video, but hopefully you guys enjoyed on that one. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
I prefer my Solarian liver served raw.